In the latest update, Sienna Fuegoneasus has traded in her fire powers for something a little bit more necrotic. Today we're talking about the new Necromancer career being added to Vermintide 2. With it, you gain the power to control a squad of skeletons, inflict cold undead flames onto enemies, and reap souls with the new Ensorcelled Reaper melee weapon. Now, before we get too far, I'd like to thank Fat Shark for giving me the opportunity to try out this new career ahead of its launch on October 19th. This was the perfect excuse to jump back into Vermintide after taking a really kind of long break. Okay, so disclaimer. I want everyone to go into this one with the same idea and have the same sort of level of knowledge of what they're watching. This build that I'm playing gave me a maximum level Necromancer with top end gear, all the bells and whistles. So if you decide to pick up this career, please just know that your experience may vary at the beginning. Okay, so let's get into it. The Necromancer career for Sienna gives her the power to summon a small group of skeletons that can be controlled with something called an Idol of Death. This is a skull on a chain that can be equipped whenever you press your potion key. Now, if you do need to actually use a potion, you can just press the key again and you'll equip your potion and you can drink it and all that fun stuff. So this Idol of Death allows you to send your skeletons in attack mode against a single enemy, or you can have them protect an area. Whenever you place your skeletons in attack mode, they're going to deal 60% increased damage for a short duration, and then if you put them in defensive mode, they're going to take reduced damage as long as they're standing still and defending an area. And these skeletons, they deal a decent chunk of damage and they can climb walls, which is really, really great, especially if you have a boss that continues to teleport to a spot that's just out of reach. So take this boss fight, for example. Normally, this is a section that you would need to use like a ranged weapon to sort of chip away at Hail Scourge's health. Instead, you can continue to do that, plus you can have your minions dealing damage as well. This just helps speed up encounters and keep damage rolling on bosses. I was very surprised to see my skeletons just hit a vertical leap, jump up, climb up onto a platform and continue to deal damage. Okay, so outside of that, right, skeletons aren't just tools of destruction. They will do damage, they'll do all of that fun stuff, but they're also a really good way to reduce Sienna's overheat mechanic. So whenever Sienna uses her ranged attack, she's going to fill up a bar. If that bar reaches 100%, Sienna will explode and then she'll go down, which is bad. However, if you have skeletons alive, you can equip your Idol of Command and then consume a skeleton to reduce your overheat by 70%. Now, this is a fantastic way to deal tons of damage by filling up your overheat, right? So you're sending out all of your kind of ranged attacks through your staff and all of that fun stuff, and you build up that overheat, and then you clear it through sacrificing a summon, and then you'll be able to continue dealing high amounts of damage again. If you stack this with critical power, you can really pump some damage in a very short amount of time. So those are the skeletons, but the Necromancer does come with some other great passives that we need to talk about. So first, let's chat about her ability and her passive called Malediction of Nagash. So this is going to cause any of Sienna's flame attacks to instead deal a debuff that causes enemies to take 20% additional damage from the player and skeletons. This can be applied through heavy attacks with certain weapons. Your skeletons can apply this debuff as well if you take a specific talent, and you can also apply it through ranged attacks. Now, there are tons of ways to get Malediction on a target, and once it is, that target will take some pretty big damage. So next, let's talk about the perks before we dive into the talents, and then I want to talk about overall impressions. So Sienna has 3 perks for this career. The first one is pretty simple and straightforward. It's called Mistress of Death. This allows her to summon and control skeletons. Nothing new, we've covered this. The second one is called Life Taker. This is going to grant a 2% increase to your critical power for 4 seconds whenever you kill an enemy, and this can stack up to 5 times. And then lastly, we have Cold Flames. This is going to cause your damage over time effects to last 100% longer, which is great because then you'll deal more damage and keep that Malediction of Nagash debuff up on the target for a longer period of time, which allows them to take even more damage. Okay, so as with every new career that gets added to Vermintide, the Necromancer does have a new talent tree as well. Now, I'm not going to read each and every little box to you. I do kind of fly through these, but there are a few I really want to make sure that you know about. So first is called Smiter. Now, this is going to cause the first enemy hit to always stagger the enemy. And then you're going to deal 20% increased damage to staggered enemies, and each hit against a staggered enemy will add another count of stagger. And then that 20% bonus damage is doubled up to 40% damage if you hit an enemy with multiple stacks of stagger. And this is fantastic, right? This is just one of those self-reciprocating skills. It feeds into itself to make it stronger and allow you to really put the hurt on anything that's staggered. Next, we have Cursed Blood. If you lean heavy into a crit heavy play style, this is a great node to take because it's going to cause any critical attacks against a target afflicted with your malediction to then burst and damage nearby enemies. This is going to help greatly with AoE clear, and especially in a horde based game, we want that as much as possible. And lastly, we have Barrow Blades. So this is going to equip your skeletons with blades and then cause their attacks to ignite enemies and deal damage over time. And this also plays very well into the malediction debuff, and it keeps up extra damage against enemies, which allows you to shorten fights and survive a little bit longer. Okay, so that's everything that sort of builds up the Necromancer, but I want to talk about first impressions. So again, going into this, remember, I had a maxed out Necromancer that was kind of tippity top, and I want everyone to know that. So I like the overall theme. I like the toolkit they delivered with it. I feel like the melding together of the kind of flame happy playstyle of Sienna with the undead malediction debuff was a really nice marriage of two powerful ailments. And being able to apply this in multiple ways instead of being kind of pigeonholed into a certain weapon, skill, or talent was also nice as well. I didn't feel forced into taking advantage of the new perks. Instead, I could build how I wanted, and then those passives would just layer on top of that. Now, during missions, the Necromancer and its kind of skelly squad seemed pretty balanced. I didn't feel overpowered to a point where the mission became dull, or I could just send my skeletons out to just like wipe stuff out. They were dying frequently, but they're also killing things frequently. So it did feel pretty balanced. I still needed the other kind of heroes on the team, right? I still needed Marcus to sort of do his tanking thing. I needed Carillion to do her part. And instead, I felt like the Necromancer slotted in nicely as a support / command role on the team and not something that completely overshadowed all of the other members. Now, with all that being said, I will say the extra management of directing summons was an additional layer of complexity that some people might not enjoy. If you're someone who's more of a frontline player who just wants to smash the attack key, this is probably not the career for you. I found myself a little bit more worried about making sure my summons were in the right place, the right posture, whether they were defense, whether they were attacking. I wanted to maximize their effectiveness. And I was more worried about that than I was about dealing damage myself, which if you're a zookeeper, right, type of play style, then that's fine, you're used to that. But if you're somebody who likes to be sort of in the action, the skeletons might seem as more of a burden than an actual benefit. So very new kind of perspective for Vermintide for me. So most of the time I was worried about me and helping friends or bots, but here you need to do all of that plus command your skeletons. So it's just something to think about, especially if you're sort of considering this playstyle. But overall, the Necromancer, it was fun. I enjoyed the class. I feel like it's a good addition because it's something that is different. It is unique compared to the other careers that are out there so far. And if you're interested in trying it, the Necromancer is releasing on October 19th for $3.99. So let me know in the comment section below, are you going to jump in and check out the Necro, or are you going to focus on some of the other games out there? Let me know, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you next time.